Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Hi. I'm Lucas Tudor from Calvert Hall High School. And a question that often leaves me in wonder is, where does our language come from? And of course that arouses some other questions, such as, why would a kid my age spend his time pondering the origins of the English language instead of having a good time out with his friends? And to that I say, valid point. I should try that. I'm not gonna. But as I find myself asking this question, I often scold myself for asking such a daft question and return it with the candid answer of, duh, Greek and Latin. But as this question sits in my mind and boils in my brain, I find it unable to push away with the stark answer of just Greek and Latin. I love our language. I love its complexity, and I love everything about it, from the poetry and the literature to the everyday conversations. And I just find that a language as complex as ours shouldn't have such a boring backstory of just Greek and Latin. Our language has transpired some of the greatest works of all time. And it's just so disappointing that it would have such a simple backstory. Greek and Latin at the time were their own separate languages, and English is a whole nother can of worms. I mean, heck, Greek has a completely different alphabet. This unrelenting drive for an answer to this question is what made me make this video for my National History Day project. Well, first things first. Let's start off where and when the English language is credited for beginning. 5th century England. At this time, Germanic peoples known as the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes invaded the place we know today as modern England. Up until this time, the people of the area spoke a Celtic language, but when the invasion occurred, they were moved northwest to modern-day Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. We derive England and English from the place of origin and language of the Angles, Anglo land, or as I like to call it, Anglala land, and Anglics, respectively. What's that? Who were the Anglo-Saxons? Well, I am so glad you asked, voice in my head. That makes for a perfect segue. The Anglo-Saxons hailed from a place owned by the Anglos, the Saxons, and the Jutes. Before they tried to conquer England, they were just a Germanic tribe. They tried to invade England while Rome still held power over it in the 4th century, but failed. But later, in around 450 AD, they returned, and there are many speculations as to why. It is believed that the warriors of Anglo-Saxon descent were needed to protect the people of England after the recession of Rome from England. The Anglo-Saxons were a mix of the Anglo and Saxon warriors, who were the largest of the 3 attacking tribes. They used circular shields, swords, and spears. They shared the same language, but not the same warrior leaders. These invaders spoke in Old English until around 1100. That's right, Old English. Contrary to popular belief, Old English was not what the Founding Fathers spoke. If it were, we wouldn't even be able to read our own Constitution. Later, in 1066, the Normans, led by William the Conqueror, the Duke of Normandy, also known as William the Bastard, invaded England. With him, he brought the French language, which became the language for basically the upper class, the royal court, and businesses. For a while, the separation of social classes was dictated by the language you spoke, with the upper class speaking French and the lower class speaking English. It took until the 14th century for English to become the dominant language again, but it was mixed with French to become Middle English, which would give way for Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And we're not even on the Constitution yet. At the end of the period of Middle English, around 1500 AD, a phenomenon known as the Great Vowel Shift occurred. The vowel shift brought with it a huge shift in pronunciations, as the stress on vowels became shorter. With this became the early stages of our modern English. During this time, Shakespeare wrote his timeless works such as Hamlet, Macbeth, and Romeo and Juliet. Works still read and loved today. The invention of printing made grammar more prevalent in our society. And of course, during that time, the greatest country in the world was formed. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, during this time, the US of A was settled, colonized, rebelled, and ratified as a nation during the early modern period of English. That's right, people, early modern English. The Founding Fathers were speaking straight slang, yo! Got it. Never saying that again. In all seriousness, the English language was spoken in one of the biggest nations of the world at the time, and spread to the New World in America, and will continue to spread as time grows on and as America spreads. And we're not even at the present yet. From the end of the early modern era to the late era onward, there isn't really much to say. As America grew, the need for new words came about in the Industrial Revolution, and vocabulary became more extensive. Also, as we grew, we adopted more words from other countries, extending our vocabulary further. And, there you have it. Our language is capable of so many things, and we have transpired so many great works, such as Robert Frost's poems, speeches, works of literature, and it's all thanks to the English language. And who would have thought that a small group of warrior tribes that would take over what would become the biggest nation, which would later conquer the New World and bring forth the greatest nation of all time, which would spread its language even further, making English one of the most prevalent language. The conquerings that helped form our new world is what really brought the world up. And I hope that this video has made you realize how special our language is. And I hope that one day we can all realize how much of a privilege it is to speak our language, and how we will be able to pass it on to the next generation.